Hi everyone, it's your pal Lee from Hoover Public Library. This is the second video in the series of Knitables, Washcloth. So at this point you should have knitted 7 rows in knit, and what you're building here is going to be the bottom border of the washcloth. So now we're ready to do row 8, and this is where we start at creating the design that's going to be in your washcloth. So row 8 calls for you to knit and purl. So the first 4 stitches are in knit, so I'm going to knit them. Alright, got 4 knit. Now I'm ready to shift to purl. I'm going to bring the yarn around. Now it's in the front of my needle on the right. I'm going to put instead of inserting my right needle into the back of the stitch that I'm about to purl, I'm going to put it into the front and wrap that yarn around it, remembering that purl is the reverse of knit. It's just those 2 stitches. So now I'm going to purl 32 stitches. So when you get to the last 4 stitches, you shift back to knit, and we're starting to build our right and left borders and having something different happen in the pattern in the middle. And for those of you who are just beginning knitting, this is really just how you create all those patterns that you see in knitted garments. Like if you've ever seen something with cables in it, like a nice cabled sweater, all we're doing is varying up how we knit and purl, holding some stitches out and twisting them around, doing things like that, and we create the different effects. Sorry, I almost dropped a stitch there. When I used to teach, sometimes I'd be knitting while my students were doing something in class, and I'd drop a stitch and I would announce, "Nobody move! I've dropped a stitch," and I swear they would freeze. All of my college kids, I taught college, all of my college kids would freeze, like somehow they could magically help me out by holding still. Alright, we're almost there. 2, 3, 4, 1 more. Alright, now I'm going to take my yarn, put it to the back, front to back. Now it's behind the needle on the right. Now I'm going to knit these last 4 stitches. So I'm going to insert the needle into the back of the stitch I want to knit into, and knit. Okay, turn it around, and now I'm ready to do row 9. Row 9 starts to introduce the pattern, and we're going to knit 6 and then alternate knitting and purling for 4 stitches, and then knit 6. So those 6 on the end will create the border around the end, and then the alternating ones in the middle help create the pattern inside the washcloth. So let's do that. bringing around the front, and now I purl 4. Now I'm going to knit 4. And now I'm going to purl 4. Did drop a stitch, so you get to see how to fix that. See, let's see if I can show you. I've got a little extra yarn there. It looks like I accidentally dropped a stitch, so I'm just gonna pick it back up by recreating that stitch. I pulled the part that had fallen off back up and around. The nice thing about knitting is when you make a mistake, you can always fix it. So let me see where I was. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I knit and purl, 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 knit, 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 knit. I'm ready to purl again. Here we go. Yeah, that fixed that. And back to knit. Back to purl. And now back to, I'm gonna knit and purl and then knit, and we're done. So here we go. If you make a mistake and get off, knit when you should purl, purl when you should knit, don't worry about it. Just get back on the next time through, get back on the pattern. Individual little mistakes like that, nobody sees them. It'll be fine. Over time, they'll just disappear from your view. If you drop a stitch, it's okay. You can pick it up, recreate the stitch manually, or you can, if you see, oh, I've done 3 rows and I dropped a stitch 3 rows back, it's okay. You can go back in and work your stitches back, take it back down, pick it up. Knitting is very forgiving, and it's okay to make mistakes, because sometimes you learn more from the mistake in fixing it than, if you'd have done it perfectly. So I'm going to finish this row. There we go. Okay, turn it. So I've got 9 rows on this needle now. And on row 10, I'm going to continue with the pattern. We'll start by knitting 6, then knitting 4, then purling 4, knitting 4. So you see it's alternated, right? And I broke it out. Instead of saying knitting 10, I broke it out so you could see the pattern. And then row 11 is just a repeat of row 9. Row 12 repeats row 10. Then row 13, you knit all the way across, and then you start the whole thing over again. And you're just going to do alternating these 2 rows in sets, in block sets. And what you'll end up with is little blocks in the pattern. And then after you've done this, for 42 rows, you're done. Now, if you want to make it bigger, that's fine. Go ahead and knit some more, but you want to keep repeating that same pattern and end on a 6th row. So it repeats every 6 times, so you want to end on the 6th row. Then you're going to knit the top border, and then you're going to bind off in knit. And in the next video I'm going to show you how to bind off. So I'll see you when you get to the end of your washcloth.